Alrighty. Welcome to Millenia here today. Be ye entities of all the coils, be ye man, woman, child, be ye spirit, creature, or even a demon, be ye a native migrator, or even an invader into the realm. Welcome from your host, this Millennium Mailman here today, on this Funny Guy Friday, of course, because I will be world building for you long after you've already begun to acclimate and fit in, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Unfortunately, I'm going to cut off the Funny Guy Friday for this week because I didn't even get through all the hot take talking points of this week because I was sick and didn't finish it. So, sorry, too bad, so sad, get over it. But yes, this week's talking point, hot take for week 6 is that there's nothing wrong with racist. Let us sit in. Nothing wrong with racist, everything wrong with racism, right? Because words without that equal power of authority, be it by force, law, or religious pressures, it's always bound to just eventually just be heard and reiterated by those who already agree with it, and just be effectively words that further assist in as evidence of confirmation biases, right? While simultaneously the same perspective of those words being reiterated and respoken and heard and shared are just going to progressively push away all those that don't agree. You either agree or you don't. Somehow and for some reason you're not allowed to be neutral, right? Excuse me. But yes, that main point for the hot take of the week is that nothing wrong with racist and everything wrong with racism when racism is involved, right? And something to specify with this argument, that's just the conversation starter. That's not the actual argument of the hot take. The hot take is more so there's nothing wrong with people having different beliefs and so on and so forth. It's just everything wrong about how people tend to ostracize and further go about acting their beliefs and trying to enact their beliefs and their opinions upon other people to convert or do such and such, like the crusades and whatnot. Because there's always going to be a million people in the world who don't agree with you. Not everyone's going to agree with you or even like what you have to say, right? There's nothing wrong with you having your opinion unless you are actively going out in the most egregious of ways to force your opinion, your thoughts and beliefs upon other people, right? In the Americas, the United States of America, and all those allied with it, we understand the nations have different opinions. The people within everyone's individual borders have different ideas and opinions and ways about going about things. Nothing wrong with that. Everything wrong with taking matters into your own hands and enacting that and forcing other people to participate in your game of your school of thought, right? So that number one take right there is that I just chose racist because I felt like it was enough of an emotionally charged school of thought to center this conversation around, but it wasn't so overly dramatic that no one would be willing to have this conversation. You hear the term racist in America every week, even if you're not trying to. You end up hearing it or thinking about it at least once a week. Again, I didn't do a survey on that, but just think about it and consider it. It's probably relatively accurate, right? I felt like it was a well-known enough topic, but it wasn't too jarring or too little understood point to be taken seriously. So yes, I chose racist as opposed to all the other IST suffix words there are, right? But yes, racist, right? Number one thing on this conversation was racist. The whole IST as a suffix. Anything that gets IST on the tail end of it as a suffix is generally, by definition, a concept or school of thought rooted in effectively life experience, family moral values, prejudices, and so on and so forth, especially racist. If you're racist, you are of a particular mindset and school of thought that through your life experiences and what you were learned, taught, and grew to value through morals and prejudices, certain stereotypes that pre-exist or were verified, hashtag confirmation bias, from your lived experience. All the same things apply to classist, elitist, Marxist, colorist, absolutist, purist, nationalist, deityist, and abolitionist. People who believe similar things get this word and get that suffix of ist added onto it. Abolitionists are of the school of thought that you have to tear down and stop something from occurring. They want to abolish and see its demise. Feminist, everyone knows what a feminist is. I'm not going to reiterate it in a way that could possibly get me canceled for not being semantically perfect about that. Right? Nationalist, colorist, classist, all schools of thought. Right? Including anti-fascist. In order to be anti-fascist, you just have to be against fascist and fascism. You don't actually have to do anything, you just have to agree with it, right? So there's nothing wrong with you having your opinion and so on and so forth. You're entitled, at least in America, you get permission to be entitled over your thoughts and your feelings. You have the number one say over your own thoughts and your own opinions. No one's allowed to dox you or get you screwed up or screwed over for having your own thoughts and opinions. It's not approved of, it's not allowed, and it's not condoned in the United States of America. Unless you're in a certain division, like the military. You're not allowed to be openly racist about having particular stereotype thoughts and considerations of your fellow soldiers and whatnot. Absolutely not. Right? So there are certain exceptions to the rule, but in general, for the facts, it's absolutely nothing wrong with being racist, a colorist, a classist, or this, that, and the third. And again, to further go on that rabbit hole before continuing on, being of a particular school of thought or words having ist on them is not to be confused with any of the professions that end in ist or words that just happen to end in ist, because professions are generally like a dentist. It's not just a school of thought of oral health, it's an actual practice, right? Or cardiologist, it's not a bunch of people who believe in cardio, it's actually a profession in reference to the circular system and the heart. Cardiology, right? Not to be confused with an activist or a capitalist and an exorcist or, God forbid, a rapist. These are a bit different. A lot of those things are a bunch of professions that aren't just schools of thought, they're actually practices, right? And again, not to be confused with words that just happen to end in ist, like a rapist or mist or blacklist or twist or assist and autist or brillist. I'm sure you get the gist of the matter here, right? There are words that just happen to end in ist as ist, and professions that end with ist that anyone who's trying to use example of those words, you're a distractor from the conversation. Get out. It's not funny. It's not funny to a debater and people who actually want to see and have this conversation, right? Don't allow those exceptions to what is being discussed decant and digress the topic, right? Again, the words that use ist as a suffix are schools of thought, not to be confused with any of those professions or any of the professions that generally don't really make up the same word when the ist is removed, and not to be confused with any one of the numerous words in the English language that don't necessarily fall into any real category of this conversation. Those are just things and topic starters to devalue the argument that steer away. But yes, ist as a suffix is representative of a school of thought. Right? Second part of this conversation to be had here, nothing wrong with racist, everything wrong with racism when racism is involved, is that ISM. ISM is a suffix where when used and added on to those same words that are to replace the ist, when for those words that it applies, for those schools of thought, you can replace the ist for ism. Instead of racist, it turns to racism, right? It's a shifting of the narrative, not really narrative, lack of a better word. It's a shifting from just the thoughts and beliefs into actions, right? And most importantly, actions against and actions for the conversions of those who don't agree or show support. Marxism, communism, feminism, nationalism, racism, elitism, fascism, activism, capitalism, right? It's transferred from school of thought and just thinking a particular way into we need to do more to get more people into agreeing with us and acting with us, right? And there's a lot of wrong and has been openly and publicized to be very wrong and considered wrong in America about isms. There's a lot to be said in the legality from the constitutional aspects of participating in ism. And the United States of America was founded in a way to get away from tyranny. So I think it is rather beautiful the way the founding fathers had made their documents and made the baseline template of how we would effectively set up the laws of the future for generations to come to be based on the actions. Allow everyone to be innocent until proven guilty, because there needs to be action that has consequences. Actions have consequences, not just the things you think about and believe. That is the difference between American society, that the purpose of America was to give everyone that equal opportunity of and voice to their thoughts and opinions and be able to live their life, right? The society of allowing people to be able to have that opportunity to do things. There's consequences for what you do, but you're still allowed to do the things you ever so choose to believe and think of, right? So the American Constitution and the Founding Fathers recognized everyone's going to be different. They can have different mindsets, different thoughts and opinions. That's fine. But everything considered criminal has to be rooted in what they dare to act on. Because some things, it's not that bad. Other things, it is so much categorically worse. there are some things that are relatively considered unforgivable, unforgivable, unforgivable by the majority, right? And as a nation founded on for the people, by the people, we want the people to, especially at least the vast majority of the people, to feel safe, right? So there will always be good or bad, positive and negative consequences to the things you do in your life every day by day. It's just that major dealing there of what is just IST, the thoughts and beliefs you have and would be willing to vocalize and be active for yourself and get other people's to be active about, vice what you're actually acting on and what others are acting on and acting against. Because again, the isms are shifts from those beliefs and those things you're thinking turning into actual actions, mainly and specifically against those who aren't directly in support of or would effectively be needing conversion, right? Because feminism is more than just thinking that women deserve equal rights and equal this, that, and opportunity. Feminism is about getting women those equal rights and what they're doing in order to get the women the equal rights. Racism, as the America history would tell you, rooted in slavery and this and that and the fourth. Racism, as victims would very much want you to recognize, is not about people having horrible thoughts and opinions about you. It's people willing to do things and this, that, the fourth, the third. People willing to do things that inherently and directly affect you. When there are racists that do racist things or racist acts of racism, there's everything wrong with that because it's entirely done in action and against you. Because if from white people, white slave owners, to black people nowadays, white people do racist things, racisms against black people. Oh gosh darn it, I hate that. And white supremacists that are racist do utterly horrible, egregious things to other white people, because either you will convert and start agreeing and acting with me, or you will suffer the consequence, because we need more and more people to become the majority that can allow this to be normal. So there's nothing wrong with having your own thoughts and opinions. There's everything wrong about your ways of going about it and fixing this or that and the third, right? Nothing wrong with having your school of thought and opinion. Everything wrong about how you intend to forcefully coerce and convert other people into agreeing and acting alongside you, right? There's, and the last little note there to be had, because again, this is a devil's advocate topic here, right? Make it a little more biblical. Faith without works is dead. I'm sure many people have heard it. Faith without works is dead. Words without power of authority or legend of historical fiction. Faith without works is dead. Words without power of authority are effectively just a bunch of legends of historical fiction, right? They're like pillow feathers in the wind. They're nothing. They're bound to just be picked up and recognized and admired by those that go, oh wow, I believe it. I don't care to question though, just because it rings true to them. So when it rings true enough to those repeating it, eating it, and acting it out and doing it enough, that is when it starts to villainize all those that dare to question this truth being shared and spread around. Because there is that parable or whatever short story tale about this person who lied, and they tried to fix the mistake, but the person they lied about, they got a pillowcase of feathers and they went to the top of a hill and they emptied it into the wind. Okay, you lied. This is what you did when you lied. You spread all the feathers right into the wind. Go collect every feather and put it back in this pillow. It's darn near impossible, isn't it? That's what you did when you lied. When you lied on me. When you had that audacity. That's what you did. It doesn't seem that big of a thing. It took you less than like 5 seconds to spray it out. It's going to take you more than 5 years to find every feather. And there might just be 1 or 2 or 12 people who are going to keep those feathers because it's a pretty feather. It's a comfortable feather. It's an awesome feather. And maybe they'll share that feather around. They'll share that lie and do this all over again, right? So when you have your school of thought and you go about acting on it and enacting the isms on forcefully to other people, and you share it around because you care about it so much, it's always going to get to this point of feathers. They could be good feathers, they could be bad feathers, but ultimately there is, at least in America, a relatively legal limit of how acceptable what you're doing is. Are you doing it in a manner that is okay, or are you being excessively forceful, like the Crusades, meant to conquer the world in the name of their Lord and Saviors, right? Are you doing it in an acceptable manner, or are you practicing those extents of force and excessiveness to people who don't agree with you? Are you doing it with people who don't agree with you, or are you doing it with doing those acts against people who are also acting against you, right? So to a certain point, the power of your words and opinions, it just doesn't have authority like that. That when you have a school of thought and you care to share it with people, it does have power. It doesn't really have authority. Not, at least not in America, right? Because some people are going to care and some people just won't. But when you go about hearing it, your words have no power. It's just going to spread and share and be known more as normal to a lot more people. It's going to be heard. It's going to be reiterated specifically by those who agree. Alrighty. If they don't already agree with it, okay, cool. Your words are nothing. Faith without works is dead. What you believe, what you practice, doesn't mean anything unless you're also practicing it. Because words have no power until you give them power, right? So it can ring true to however many people the school of thought rings true to, until anyone's willing to act on it. It's pretty much nothing, right? But something it does and can do, even if you're not doing things yourself, when you share that with people who would actually do things about that thing you believe in, it turns people who disagree into villains, right? It villainates all those that dare question that truth, who question your particular school of thought that you've done a great job of making well known and shared to other people. It villainizes everyone who doesn't already agree and is willing to support it. And the biggest problem with it, you doing with, not even you, just with people doing that, is that when it villainates enough people, when it villainates enough people into being targets of interest against that particular school of thought, like, what is it? Let's say Christianity and Satanism. Satanist. Christianity and Satanism, right? Christianity, it's enough of a polarized school of thought, especially to people of the Satanist belief. Christians believe in Christianity, and Satanists believe in Satan. Now, both of these schools of thought are well known to a lot of people, a lot of arguably majorities, right? And using the Christianity and Satanist as an example, when it is known by enough people and is shared in beliefs by enough people, the opposition is nothing but a villain in the eyes of both. Christians are villains in the eyes of Satanists, and Satanists are absolute deplorable individuals in the eyes of Christians and God and Lord and Christ believers of any particular faith, right? When it's known and rings true, when that school of thought is known and rings true to enough people, and especially enough people who are actually going to do something about the things they believe in, the opposite side is absolutely villainized. It's villainized in a way that puts targets on the backs of the opposition. It's villainizes enough to where those people who are more than willing to do things for their school of thought and their belief eventually act on those things they believe and act against the villains they believe to be villains. It is polarizing in a manner that allows those who are willing to act on their beliefs to effectively justify all the things that follow up to what they're about to do against the villains of their school of thought and their beliefs. I do apologize. I'm just thinking about some other things that correlate to that I didn't think of before. When you have a particular school of thought and you are able to share it, it's a powerful thing. But at least in the modern day and age, it doesn't have the power of authority. The things you say absolutely has power. It doesn't have authority, not in America. Why? Because America was founded on this ideal and belief and was structured in a manner that allows any and everyone of all kinds of diverse backgrounds and belief systems to be able to exist in the same atmosphere. It allows everyone that opportunity to be in the presence of one another without natural, inherent fear of what could happen. America does that. But at the same time, the scariest thing about, and you could also say it's probably the funniest piece about it, is that opportunity allows these diverse schools of thought to effectively villainize each other if enough time is granted for everyone to be polarized. So the funniest and scariest thing about this structure is that people need to remember that they should never, ever forget to be able to talk about things before it gets too far polarized that we can't just talk to one another, because the isms are very much not permitted to get involved. The isms where forceful coercion is considered criminal in the United States of America. You acting in particular ways, not just for you and your family, but forcefully enacting those systems of beliefs, those schools of thought upon other people who chose not to agree with you, that is illegal. If you can talk to people, and since they also believe in what you believe, you're just do what you're fixing to do on your own household grounds, on your own time, on your own dime, that is always and has always been welcome in the United States of America. But the only thing that makes certain things criminal is that aspect of you're not allowed and never will be permitted to forcefully enact your thoughts and beliefs upon other people without consequence. Because hate is gonna hate. Criminals will always find ridiculous ways to do bad all by themselves. You're welcome to do what you will in America, but there are consequences when what you do is forcefully harmful and effective and against the beliefs of other people. When what you do is not approved of by another person's beliefs and what they wanted for themselves in their lives, there are consequences to be had about what you did to not allow that opportunity for them and their lives to go through the way they intended. So that makes it a beautiful and a scary and a funny thing, which is why it's on Funny Guy Friday instead of, since I kind of got sick and blanked on a few of the days earlier, right? But yes, that is the whole hot take of the week. Week 6, nothing is wrong with racist. Nothing's wrong with your particular school of thought. Everything is wrong with racism, and when racism is involved, everything is wrong when you enact your beliefs against those who don't agree with you. Because words without equal power of authority, be it by force, law, or religious pressures, are always bound to just be heard and reiterated by those who already agree, while simultaneously pushing away those that happen to just not agree, which inherently creates exclusion amongst the different beliefs. And there's good reason for it. So that's the video. That's it. But hey, that's just me, your Millenia mailman here, talking on that devil's advocate hot take topic for the week. If you like the video or agree with anything said in the video, go ahead and press the like button. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or nigh and beyond, go ahead and put that down in that comment section down below, dear Lord D. Go ahead and put that down in that comment section down below. Share if you think the video deserves more exposure, and of course, subscribe if you feel like it.